We're back. That's it. That's how I'm opening it. We're back.
We're back. A dinosaur story.
We are back at Dinosaur Story variant the podcast. We're back. That's
Welcome
all
back, everybody.
It's been a year?
No.
Close to it.
It's, well, like 7 months.
Yeah.
December.
We've done some like one-offs, some one-shots, if you will.
But as far as the regularly scheduled podcast, as promised, we are back July 24th.
Here we are.
Variant the podcast. Welcome back, everybody. We are glad to be back in the saddle.
And can we put like a fake applause in?
Sure, why not? And cue. So this actually is the beginning of us getting back to a regular weekly schedule.
You said beginning in my head, automatically, without hesitation, said end. Like my brain just went, is the beginning? And my head went, of the end.
That's called a pessimist.
When I say cake, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
Icing.
All right. Word association. It's cool. Anyway, go on.
This is what I have to work with. All right. Regardless of Arris's pessimism, we are back to a weekly schedule and very excited to do so. We've got a bunch of really great stuff lined up here just in the next couple of weeks. In fact, including some creator interviews.
Yes.
A couple of which are going to be really fun and might explore the future of DC Comics and some other things.
Yeah.
So we're going to be doing a bunch of different stuff, including new segments on the show. So we've been working on that behind the scenes as we've been preparing to relaunch the regular schedule of the podcast.
A lot of different things.
Yeah, a lot of new stuff. But today, what we really wanted to kind of, on our grand return, we really wanted to address.
Back to being a pessimist. You'll see why.
It's not really pessimistic. It's more just, why is this happening? So one of the things
it's more just facts.
It's more just like, it is what it is, okay? We're just dealing with it. Is we want to talk about the state of superhero films and why they are on such a decline. Largely with audiences, because you've had some that have been a little bit better than others and, whatever. But regardless, you are just seeing this perpetual decline of superhero content, I would say. It's not even films. And we'll get into the kind of nuances of between them as far as film and TV. But we want to talk about just broadly what's going on with superhero films, why we have been seeing this kind of precipitous decline at the box office with superhero films, as well as the shows, why they have not been received as well. So one of the things I kind of wanted to start off is like, there's so much negativity because, when anything happens, it just becomes this bombardment, it's kind of this domino effect of people just become more and more negative about a thing.
Right.
And it's like, does that really connect with reality? So it's like, are things as bad as is kind of currently being discussed out in the intersphere?
I'd imagine not when you actually look at the statistics. Obviously, there's probably a drop, but it's weird too because like when you look at statistics, you got to look at inflation, and we know inflation's been freaking on the incline quite a lot in the last 3 years. So
it's definitely a part of one of the factors for sure.
Yeah, but it's like anything. You hear the noise on the interwebs, and some of it's true, some of it's not. But I will say, I joked with you before we started this. I'm like, this could really be all, summed up in a sentence. The reason why things have been declining is because they need to make better stories. I think that's like...
Yeah, I know, and you've been saying that for a while, and I agree with you.
You want to know why? You want to know why, though?
I can't wait to hear this.
Because it's like, if any studio, whether it's Marvel, Warner Brothers, whatever it is, in anything, just not even just comic book films, anything in life, if you're pumping out like awesome shows, awesome games, awesome whatever, are you going to be like, that's too much awesome, I don't want that, I'm not going to watch it because my body can't, withstand that much awesome, so I'm going to lose interest because it's just too much good? Or is it that you're pumping stuff out that's mediocre? Like, you know what I mean? I can't see people being like, you're pumping 3 movies out a year, 4 to 5 shows a year, and they're just so good and so great that like I'm losing interest. You know what I mean? So I think I do think there is something to be said with quantity, but at the same time, if they were, because I think what the problem, I'm just talking out of my butt here, but I think since they're spreading themselves too thin where they're not able to pump out quality, right?
Right.
But let's say, this is going to be weird to say because Disney has a massive team, but let's say they had even a bigger team. They had 2 Feiges, whatever, 2 people to like look over, kind of like what Warner Brothers is doing, right? And you could monitor all that content because Feige's only one guy, so he's going to be, stretched, then he can't keep as close an eye on every project, on like 10 projects as he could 4 projects.
Sure.
So it's like if you had a bigger team, maybe you can maintain that quality, but they can't. I think they stretch themselves too thin. So it's like, I don't think it's the too much in the sense that if they were able to pull it off, we would still like it. But they stretch themselves too thin where they can't clearly. That, and then most likely, not even most likely. Why do I keep saying that? Definitely. I'm like, not probably, sure? Most likely.
Are you sure?
That and the fact that they are making decisions and doing things with characters that just aren't as good as the first 10 years. And they're kind of like they're getting kind of the B-listers now, right? Because you already used your caps.
Right.
To be fair, Iron Man and Captain America were never A-listers, so you could have that segment of fandom that's like, that's not true, Arris. Iron Man wasn't nearly as popular until Robert Downey Jr. True.
That's
but they're not doing the stories they need to be doing to make us like these characters as much as, let's call them the legacy characters of the MCU.
I think all of that is relevant. I do. However, so we're looking at just kind of like to talk about exactly what's the reality here? Like, what are we talking about specifically? Because there's factors involved, but how, kind of going back to the how bad actually is it? Mm-hmm. Like, are we seeing that significant of a drop off? Or are we just seeing peaks and valleys? What is it? So to kind of put things in context, right? We'll just kind of go by most recent, what's going on with DC films, and then what's been the most recent results for Marvel films. Starting with Marvel. Marvel has not seen $1 billion film since No Way Home in 2021, right? Before that, none of the films in Phase 4 reached $1 billion, but there's like an asterisk by those because of the pandemic lockdowns, what have you. No Way Home was like the first one that people really went out to the theaters. Ever since then,
it was also a big nostalgia pull.
It was a huge nostalgia pull. So there was a lot of reasons, but it's also Spider-Man. Mm-hmm. The Spider-Man films had been really good up until that point.
The previous two didn't hit $1 billion though, right?
I think
I'm pretty sure they did
Far
not.
From Home might have.
Really?
I mean, I would have to look that up. You can check on that while we're kind of talking. But so you've had just kind of this precipitous decline in films, regardless after No Way Home, right? So where it's just been, and this year particularly in 2023, Marvel has seen some of its biggest box office drop-offs in its entire run. Mm-hmm. It's in the entirety of its 10-year or 11 years or whatever it is, period. DC. Now, again,
Far From Home hit $1 billion worldwide.
Yeah, I thought so.
1.1.
Okay.
Right.
I don't think Homecoming did. It was the first one, but then after that.
Wait, sorry, no. I may have, hold on.
Was it worldwide?
Okay, yeah. No Way Home, 1.9. Dang.
Yeah, No Way Home was almost $2 billion.
Spider-Man Homecoming, 800.
Right.
Almost 900 million worldwide. And then 1.1 Far From Home.
So Homecoming was what?
Let's say 900 million.
Okay, so it was just short.
Yeah.
Either way, they have all been very successful.
Yes, for sure.
And increasingly so as Spider-Man continued to make an impact within the MCU. Mm-hmm. So that there was multiple factors there, including, and I would say most importantly, the fact that this Tom Holland Spider-Man and the movies and everything that he's been in has been very popular amongst fans. Mm-hmm. So, and then you add the nostalgia pool, so that was the one thing. But after that, Black Widow, Shang-Chi, Eternals, Doctor Strange, Multiverse of Madness, Thor, Ant-Man and the Wasp, and now Guardians of the Galaxy, which was successful. I believe it did close to 900 million.
Last I checked, it was at 800 million, but it's probably just shy of 900.
Just shy of 900 million worldwide. Last I checked, if I remember correctly as well, which is certainly their best success since. But everything else has just been
843 million worldwide.
Okay, so it's breached the 800 mark, which is still a successful film
for sure, very successful. Yeah,
and it was the most successful film that they've had other than No Way Home, since the beginning of Phase 4. So but Ant-Man and the Wasp dramatically underperformed Thor: Love and Thunder, while it did do well.
That kind of proves my point a little bit, I feel, though. Because I think Guardians Volume 3 was a solid film.
It was.
It was good storytelling.
Yeah, it was. And then there was, very similar to No Way Home, there was some pools there. It was the end of the era. Everyone wanted to see who was going to die in the Guardians of the Galaxy.
Spoiler, no one. I'm actually kind of still a little mad about that. I was like, how did you not like someone? Like, I mean, I don't wish ill to anyone, but they're fake.
So there was some external elements there as far as that story that people definitely want to see. But the fact that it was a good movie and it was well made and all of that kind of stuff, they took their time on it clearly, definitely helped. So
it was James Gunn's swan song.
Yeah, the quality portion of it is absolutely one of the factors. DC films, however, flipping to the DC side, we all know now Flash was the largest box office flop for DC.
For a comic book films.
For a comic book films.
Across
in
the
the end,
board.
Across the board, it was the biggest.
I just saw something before we did this saying it's going to lose more than Green Lantern with Ryan Reynolds.
Which is incredible.
$200 million loss.
Incredible.
That's insane.
But Shazam was a massive box office failure as well.
Do you know, before we move, the crazy thing? I'm going to say it again. I've said it like multiple times already on all different things. But like, I've said it before on all different things. But The Flash is not a bad film.
It's not.
Like, I get it. Ezra Miller, douchebag, not a good human being. Totally understand. But the film itself is not a bad film.
Right.
And it's crazy.
Which goes to my point, which is that quality and storytelling is not the only factor here. There's multiple factors.
That's a tricky situation because the Ezra thing.
But that's like everything that you can point to, there's little asterisks by a lot of these. Whether it's, okay, this is a pandemic era. Okay, well, this was, people were wanted to see the nostalgia pool for No Way Home. Oh, okay, with the Guardians of the Galaxy, everybody wanted to see how they were going to wrap up the trilogy. There's different things that you can assign to it.
Yeah.
But here's the broader point. The issue at the box office in particular, not really addressing, the superhero thing is kind of its own world, which is what we're going to mainly target. But the box office portion, it's not just isolated to superhero films. You're seeing a lot of films fail at the box office. Big ticket, in terms of budget.
For sure.
Films that are failing. So it's not just quality.
We're spoiled now because of the streaming that was implemented during the pandemic. Everyone got used to, even me, I'm still like, it's going to be streaming in a month. I'm going to wait.
That's one of it. So for me, I kind of have a list because I think for me, this is a multifaceted problem.
Okay.
It is quality, but for me, it's a multifaceted problem. So I kind of just highlighted what You
made a doc?
Yeah, I made a listy. What I think are the main contributing factors. And one of them is definitely the quality of the films. Audience fatigue. They kind of coincide. Is it audience fatigue or is it the quality? Well, I think it's both, and they're related. I think people are getting tired of them because of the quality they're getting from them. So the fatigue that is there, that is contributing to the factor, I think a lot of it is because of the fact that the quality we're getting back is not what it's not reaching the standard that was set with, let's say, an Infinity War film.
Yeah. Right?
It's not reaching that. So people are like, now you add the fact of what you had already mentioned on top of that, the inflation. How much is it to freaking go to the movies?
It's expensive.
It's insane.
It's
insane. I can't go, I take my wife and my kids to the movies, and it's legit like $100 almost just for tickets.
Dude.
Depending on, if you want to see it in a good theater on a big screen or whatever, it's expensive, and then concessions on top of that. So people are weighing that in because everything is more expensive now. So now you're having to factor in because people are no longer giving the benefit of the doubt to these studios and these franchises. They're not just going it's Marvel, so I got to see what happens.
I also think a big factor, a little asterisk, if you will, is the fact that all you have to do is wait 5 weeks.
30 days.
It's 45 days. 45 days is what I guess the kind of new standard, and then you could just see it at home. So it's there's not a sense of urgency. Before it would be if I don't see it after it's out of theaters, you got to wait several months for it to be on digital. Because remember back when we were kids, in the 90s, if you didn't see a movie, you had to literally a year.
No, it was like
a year.
6 months to a year. Yeah,
I remember when the first Power Rangers movie came out. I saw it, and the following Christmas it was released on VHS.
And that was the norm.
And that was with every film. And then it went from the gap closed a little bit in the 2000s where it was around 6 months or something like that. But now, so it still had that urgency where it's wow, if I don't see the new Batman film, I had to wait half a year before I could see it on Blu-ray or something like that. But now it's a little over than a month. That's not that bad.
Yeah, and honestly, one of the things that I was I kind of was there you go. This is the problem, is when that recent interview with Bob Iger, where he was talking about how fans, how they're having to deal with, they're struggling with the fact that their movies aren't in theaters as long, when he was addressing why are these movies not making as much at the box office, right? And, for me, the studios, listening to them address the issues to the public, it's either you're delusional and have a total lack of self-awareness, or you're lying. So you're lying to yourself, the public, or both about what the root of the issue.
Are you telling me, Tim? Are you trying to tell me to my face, the billionaire Bob Iger, the head of one of the biggest corporations in the world, is delusional because he lives in a different reality?
He might spin the facts and what's actually causing the problem.
But
here's the thing, and this
you think he knows how much like bread is? Like legit. When's the last time that man went shopping for himself?
I don't think he knows how much the bread is that you and I buy.
Freaking.
But here's the thing. When listening to him answer that question, and honestly, several other studio execs that I've heard in the last, let's say, 6 to 8 months, one of the things that they're talking about, like when they're, citing this, the plight of, our movies can't stay in theaters so long, is people, we tend to have kind of short memories. It's the studios.
You're the one who did this.
It's the studios, including Disney, who negotiated down the turnaround time during the pandemic era with the theaters. The theaters wanted to keep the movies longer, and the studios wanted it reduced to 30, max 45 days on big blockbuster tentpoles, depending on box office return. So it was the studios who are responsible for the movies only staying in theaters a very short period of time because they wanted it on streaming. So it's the lockdown, the pandemic era lockdowns dramatically altered like our behavior, like societal and industry behavioral patterns, like in terms of movie going.
Well, we all know why they did that too, because at the time, since 2020 and all the way up to like 2020,
they were all building their streaming services.
They were building their streaming services, and it was more beneficial to them to be like, no, because once it's on our platform, there's no middleman. We get all the money from signups. But now that it's not to their benefit anymore, because things are more or less back to normal, they're like, wait a minute, it's the theater's fault.
Exactly right.
So it's really funny.
So now the studios are turning around, including you. I'm looking at you, Bob Iger, turning around going now like, we're having such a hard time because our movies can't stay in theaters so long. Well, you did that, sucker.
Does he listen and watch our podcast?
Maybe he does. And if you do, Bob, we remember. We remember.
Also,
you might not have been CEO at the time. I don't remember if he was. I think he was. I don't think he was.
That was Chapek?
Yeah, it was Chapek. Yeah, but anyway, the reality is that COVID and the pandemic era and everything that went on along with that, first the lockdowns, and then everybody just kind of, that time period, it got people used to not seeing movies right away. How many movies got pushed back and delayed?
Dude,
right? To where you waited like 2-3 years to see a movie you were anticipating, and kind of the excitement got just beat down to a pulp.
Dude.
To where it's like you just kind of got used to it. And then everybody got used to watching at home. And then you add the fact that all the prices went through the roof. And so you have this like perfect storm where people are like, all I have to do is wait 30 days now, and it's going to be at my house, and I can save a whole bunch of money, and it's more convenient. I don't got to go to a movie theater.
Depending on the film, that's me. Yeah, 100%.
That's a lot of people now. And the cost has really, really been one of the leading factors of that, because it is extremely expensive for a family, especially, to go to the movies.
Yeah,
we were talking about it when we were shooting the other day at the theater. We were at B&B Theater shooting for another episode we got coming up for Blue Beetle. And we were talking about it there, about how, like, if you were just somebody, you were going out on a date with your wife or your girlfriend or whatever.
Dude, it's well over $100.
Yeah. And you just going to dinner and a movie.
Mm-hmm.
Like you're spending like well over $100 to just, the movie tickets, the concessions, and then like dinner. You're spending like $150.
That's why I got 2 little ones. I got a 2-year-old and a 6-year-old, and we took her to see the new Little Mermaid for her birthday early June. And, again, just for all 4 tickets or whatever, it's like $60 or something like that. And then obviously they want like slushies and stuff like that. But it's like, it's crazy where it's like.
Because you were looking at, what was it you were looking at? Was it popcorn you were looking at? And you were like, dude, it's freaking $14.
Dude, at that theater we shot at, B&B Theaters, for a large drink and a large popcorn, $18.
$18, that's what it was.
18, so it's $9 a pop. $9 for a large drink. You go to 7-Eleven, get a large drink for like $2.
And I don't want to make it sound like we're knocking B&B Theaters. B&B Theaters is great, but because that's kind of the industry norm.
No, that's like that at AMC, Cinemark, Regal, across the board.
And you've got some like local theaters. Like we have an AMC theater that's like because I live in a smaller city, and our AMC, because it's like smaller, their prices are less. So there are some, but if you go to any like large theater that's in a relatively populated area, that's the norm.
It's kind of always been like that, to be fair. To like, I remember
concessions
Oprah.
were always expensive.
Yeah, I remember Oprah back in the 90s when she told the Oprah Winfrey Show. She like a billionaire, Oprah, like the richest woman in the world, complained how expensive concessions were.
Yeah,
your treats are expensive when Oprah is like, bro, what's happening here?
And that's one of the indictments, I think, on the film industry, because theaters make so little from ticket sales.
They do it on purpose. Most of their revenue is from snacks. That's where
they make their money. That's why they push concessions so hard.
Well, then
even in the trailers.
Why am I spending $15 for a ticket then?
Because the movie, the studios take such a huge cut.
Money.
Yeah, man.
Yeah, Iger. You need more money, huh? Mr. like 4 commas.
Well, there's a lot more to it than just Iger. But he's ahead of that ship. But, again, going back to like, this is a multifaceted problem. Okay, so you have that, what we were just talking about. So you've got like the audiences have now, our behaviors of like whether we're going to the theaters or not has changed dramatically.
Yeah. So like Indiana Jones,
Indiana Jones, Mission Impossible even.
Well, like, because Indiana Jones, I love Indiana Jones, but I planned on seeing it in theaters, but like I heard it's not really doing that well. It's kind of getting mediocre, mixed reviews. So I'm like, oh, well, if that's the case, then I'm just going to wait just 30 days. And that's what I'm doing. But then there's obviously, I'm going to see like the Batmans, the Spider-Mans, because that's like my wheelhouse. But then there's other stuff like Indiana Jones, or even if the Transformers film didn't get good reviews, I ended up seeing it in theaters, but that's because everyone loved it. But if it was one of those things where it was kind of like, I would have waited for that as well.
But even with word of mouth, Transformers did very mediocre at the box office.
Yeah, but it
did not perform like massively. It did decent.
It seems enough to where they're, spoiler for Transformers Rise of the Beasts, where with that little cliffhanger with the G.I. Joes at the end, that they are going to be moving forward with that universe. So,
Yeah, I mean, it was enough, but I mean, relative to previous Transformers films, I don't think that it performed. I'm looking it up right now.
You're looking at Bumblebee?
To see, well,
I'll pull up Bumblebee.
It's kicking me. Are you pulling up Bumblebee?
Yeah, you pull up Bumblebee.
I'm doing Rise of the Beasts.
All right, so Bumblebee made $467 million.
467?
Yeah, worldwide.
So look at the previous,
and that was 2018.
Look at the previous Transformers films. Like pull up, let's say the first and second Transformers. So Rise of the Beasts has made $422 million worldwide. It made $153 domestically.
So that's comparable.
Which is still, I think it's going to be sufficient enough for them to move forward with the franchise.
Yeah, because Bumblebee made just under $500 million.
Right. So it's definitely, it didn't do terrible, because I don't know what the budget on the film is.
Bucks?
But it didn't do, like we've gotten used to, like a real box office success is 700 million to $1 billion, right? Now, when I was growing up, a movie making 700 million was like, that was like the biggest movie of all time, i.e. like the Titanic.
Yeah,
it was like
things
crazy,
are crazy now.
Right? Now it's a totally different world. So, but you've got movies. The other issue is that these studios.
Dark Side of the Moon, 2011, 1.1 billion.
Yeah, I knew there was at least one or two that crossed the $1 billion.
Age of Extinction, 2014, 1.1 billion.
Yeah, okay, there it is.
Well, the Transformer films have always been massively successful overseas.
Yes,
like that's where they make like the bulk of their money.
But regardless, these studios, because of these previous successes and these box office returns internationally and domestically, that they had become accustomed to with these franchises, they're spending $250 to $300 million a movie, not including their marketing budgets. So that makes it to where they have to make an insane amount of money at the box office to break even.
Yes.
So because
and only in 35 or 30 to 45 days.
Yes, and now they've reduced their time window that they have to.
You got to make more in less amount of time.
Yeah, so it's kind of just across the board. It's kind of insane, the environment and it's almost, for me personally, it's almost like you have set this up to fail. Between the budgets that you're making these movies for, the amount of time that you prompted.
Where's that money going to? Because we know it's not going to the Writers Guild or SAG. It's not going there. So where's it going,
dude? A lot of it, honestly, is toward if it's in visual effects. There's a lot of factors. It's not just any one thing, but the cost to make these films has gone through the roof. And then they intentionally lowered the amount of time that they have to make their money back at the box office, putting a lot of leverage onto their streaming services, hoping that was going to do it. That has not paid off for them.
They keep doing the same thing, which is like, expecting a different result, which is the definition of insanity, right? Mm-hmm. But I mean, Iger seems, at least on the Disney side, he seems like, he flat out said they're going to reduce like the Marvel Disney Plus stuff and Star Wars. So I think they're feeling it. They're like, wait a minute.
I think
you're not watching. You're not but there's the story side of that too, which I think, at least for the diehard nerds, like people like me, it's like, yeah, because you botched that character. Star Wars is the one that hits home a lot because Marvel, I think overall, not recent years. So I'm not even going to go that route because Marvel's been doing some crazy stuff recent years. So I'll go back to Star Wars. Star Wars is the one that hits with me because that one's, it's a smaller universe than Star Wars, right? Star Wars is, than Marvel. Star Wars is huge, but Marvel's bigger. So with that, it's a lot more noticeable when you mess things up because, the legacy characters like Han, Darth Vader, just Jedi and Sith in general, everyone kind of knows more or less, even if you're not a massive nerd, use the Force and kind of the rules of that universe. Yep. So when you change it and mess it up, you're like, but why? The thing that annoys me the most, with when you're adapting any IP, because we know they're doing gargoyles, right? We know that's a...
That's a rumor.
It's a rumor. Okay, so...
It's a rumor. We don't know. We have not got any kind of confirmation on that.
All right, so they're working on gargoyles tentatively. It's not confirmed, right? But any IP, it's the point. When you're adapting gargoyles, you're adapting Marvel, Star Wars, DC, anything. I get that these filmmakers and studios are like, hey, we don't want to make the same thing. I get it. I understand. Sure. But it's like, why are you making this IP or this comic book or this cartoon a movie in the first place? Why? What's the reason? We all know what the real reason is, because there's a fan base. Now, why is there a fan base? Because the fan likes the book, the game, the cartoon, whatever it is they're adapting. So then when you come in and you change core elements, you're not giving us the reason why we like it.
Right.
And there's a weird like kind of compromise there where it's like, reasonable fans, I would say, I would like to think of myself as a reasonable fan, are not going to get pissed if you change certain things, right? But there's core things to like Superman or, Optimus Prime or whatever character that's like, you can't do that. Like, that's not like, if you make this character that, or you change that, Kryptonite doesn't make Superman weak anymore or whatever, it's like, but that's like a staple. So it's like, just make your own thing at that point. But they don't want to do that because they know that's risky. If you just slap Superman, they're like, everyone's going to come because they're thinking the Superman we all know and love. But if you do something that's like Superman, that's not Superman, people aren't going to show up. So it's like they're taking advantage of the fans in a sense that way. And it's really, really annoying. It's like, okay, fine. You can make something else that's like that. Just don't call it Superman or Power Rangers or whatever IP you're adapting, because the reason why we like the Star Wars thing. Someone made a point that I heard. Star Wars is like, why did George Lucas get whatever $1 billion for Star Wars? Why? Because it was loved by the fans. What he did, they bought what he loved, what he built, only to change it. Why would you buy? They literally valued it at almost $5 billion because they paid that. Right. Paid that for something that's successful because of what Lucas built, right? And his team, and he's not the only one, but Lucasfilms and all that stuff. Only to change it. Why? Yeah. Why? It's like you're screwing your investment, right? It's like, why would you not? That just doesn't make any, like, I'm not any sort of businessman, but I feel like common sense would say, if I'm going to pay this much money for something, you would kind of want to keep the guy who made it that successful, or one of the main reasons made that successful, like, in the loop and take his advice. Yep. Because it's like, again, you paid that money for it. You told him, hey, it's worth this much because I'm giving you this much, and then you're going to change it and hope for the best because it's like, it's Star Wars.
Yeah, and I mean, I think and what you're saying is why I said fans are no longer giving these studios and franchises the benefit of the doubt anymore. Fans have caught on, and that leads to the last factor of what I think is causing this decline in superhero success, because it is not just the films. Like, we're talking about box office a lot. That's kind of the central focus, because that's where a lot of the money is, particularly in regard to budgets. However, when it comes to Marvel, they've been applying like movie level budgets to some of these shows.
Yeah, a lot of them.
So they're almost just as expensive in some cases as some of the MCU movies they've been churning out. So it's not just the films that are having these problems. The MCU Disney Plus shows have seen a gradual and consistent decline in success as well.
They've lost their spark too, right?
And I think it's for the same reason, which leads to my last point as far as a factor goes, and why there's a lot of people that aren't giving them the benefit of the doubt. Fans have caught on about the fact that a lot of the people that are making and leveraging these franchises, these stories, these characters, a lot of them are ideologues. Whether you agree or disagree, just factually stating, they're ideologues, and they're leveraging these franchises for political reasons. Which, however, this is not speaking to anything one way or the other. This is just to say that is reality. And so when you get preachy like that, because you did not see that, let's say just the MCU for its first 10 years, you did not see that.
Right.
After Endgame, MCU changed dramatically in that regard.
For sure.
You started seeing all kinds of things that were not involved in the next 10 years. Well, what happens is when you start stating particular political views, right? Not like, ideals like that kind of everyone universally shares, but particular political perspectives. You're going to polarize your franchise.
For sure.
You're going to isolate a huge chunk of your audience.
Because no matter which way you go, you're going to have the side.
You're going to have one side.
Yeah.
And, you have right now, there's a lot of people talking about this and have been for years now. And how it's addressed is dependent on which side of the aisle you fall on, right? So on one side, it's like, oh, this is trash and the woke and the this and the that and the other thing. On the other side, it's like, it's not woke. It's, these are just a bunch of crazies and all this kind. So whichever, it's just dependent. And then you've got some people in the middle that are just like, can we just...
Well,
you just have fun for 5 minutes?
You just do the Bill Burr thing. You follow the money. What is the money telling
exactly
you? What is the money telling you? Money is the thing that speaks the loudest.
But the fact that the money does not seem to have been speaking for the last few years, and they're not responding to that, and that goes to superhero films, Star Wars.
Iger seems like he is now, though. Had some pulling back.
I mean, we'll see, because all they're really talking about is volume right now.
Right. That's step one.
That's
step one.
But it's for me, it's one of those things where it's like you'll have to wait and see. Even when it comes to like DC, like what are they going with the future of their franchise? We're just gonna have to wait and see because they're not really telling us yet one way or another. You're getting hints at things, but it's like how many times we talked about, like we wanted them to rip the Band-Aid off and just full reset and just say that flat out.
You see Aquaman's getting reshoots again, the third round of reshoots. No. And they're pulling Ben Affleck out of, because originally Keat was in it, I believe. Then they swapped it with Ben Affleck. And now apparently James Gunn's like, yeah, no, we're taking Ben Affleck out too. So it's gone through 2 Batman already.
It's insane.
This Aquaman 2 is not going to be good. Well, a film that has that many, like...
No matter what, but does it matter whether it's good? Honestly, does it matter whether it's good?
I don't know. They haven't told us if it matters.
I think the answer to that is no. Because but everyone has done... It's seemingly, not everyone, but the vast majority of people are clearly done with that element of DC. And honestly, DC, you're going to have to win people back at this point. And I think that's true for Marvel. That's kind of like my end point of this whole thing, is for all these different factors... If you really want people to go to the theaters, you're going to have to give them a reason to do so. And that includes, you cannot just consistently take advantage of your audience and quality of storytelling, the insane costs of everything, putting things out in theaters and then turning around and putting it on streaming 5 minutes later and pretend like that's not going to de-incentivize putting butts in the chairs in theaters. I mean, there's just so many factors to it. That it's like, and there's just, I don't know, there's this clear disconnect from what's causing this decline over here. Not just, I think you have the holistic box office issue, because again, it's not just superhero movies that are seeing this problem. But just in regard to superhero movies, what's causing the problem at the box office and for superhero content, comic book related content that's just going to streaming, you can't just continue to abuse and take advantage of audiences on all these different levels and then expect that not to blow up in your face.
Well, it seems like it's kind of slowly happening. I mean, I think on the MCU side of things, well, Star Wars kind of did the same. Here's a perfect example. We've talked about this before. Like, they bait and switch you all the time. Obi-Wan Kenobi.
Correct.
They literally, it was like the rematch of the century. That's literally like a promotional piece of dialogue from Disney. The rematch of the century. Because we all know, like, Obi-Wan fights Anakin at the end of Revenge of the Sith. And then, he like chops off his limbs and stuff like that. That's what he turns to Darth Vader. And it was like, oh, rematch. Now it's Vader versus Obi-Wan. It's like that in-between fight. We get to see it live action. This is going to be awesome. And people like me who grew up with the prequels, that's what the Star Wars we saw in theaters were like, oh, this is awesome. Yeah. And then, like, most of the show is about, like, this Inquisitor that we've never heard about before. Right. Or Leia, which is like, we all love Leia, but, like, the show's called Obi-Wan or Kenobi, right? If you want to focus 60% of the show on Leia, make a Leia show. But that's the thing that pisses me off, the bait and switch. It's
you always end up back at Star Wars. We're talking about superhero movies. Arris is very passionate about Star Wars at the current.
Because theirs is the easiest to, like, dissect, because it's more linear in the sense where Marvel has a lot more pieces. The MCU,
I think it's the same problem, though.
It is, but like
in terms of the storytelling, I think it's the same problem. You have a lot of people behind the scenes that are grabbing and attaching, being attached to these properties, franchises, characters, etc., that they don't really care about the history of these characters. They don't really care about the fandoms. They only do to an extent. And a lot of that is, how can I leverage it to tell the story they want to tell? And that's fine, but at least be honest with the audience up front. And that speaks to what you're saying.
Because they know we won't come.
They can't.
Right.
Exactly.
They know the Secret Invasion right now. Spoilers if you're not caught up with the first 5 episodes or 4 episodes of Secret Invasion. Same thing with freaking Secret Invasion right now. Started in Captain Marvel. First and foremost, the Skrulls, right? Mm-hmm. They are the rivals of the Kree, right? Kind of the same thing in here.
Right.
At least sort of kind of in the MCU. They made them the sympathetic, like, oh, poor us, we got hurt, we need a place to live.
Although that has, to be fair, that they are changing course on that in Secret Invasion.
No, they're kind of not, though.
That's kind of my point.
With a small faction.
It's a hugely different way of getting there.
Yeah, because you got graphics people who are like, we're going to take this.
They changed and became more like terrorists because of the fact that they never got,
you know what?
Like they were never treated fairly or whatever, and all the stuff that happened with the blip.
No, I fart on that. No.
You know what, though? The freaking blip is turning out to be one of the most annoying aspects of the MCU.
Let me finish. At
least the way they're leveraging it.
So how they're trying to make like, oh, we got this like, you know, like Talos is like, oh, but some of us are good. We will show them how we're good. And it's like, that's not really the Skrulls as a whole. The Super Skrull. That's another thing that pissed me off. It's like, you took this thing that all of us nerds were like, yeah, Super Skrulls, that we know the Fantastic Four is coming. That's like the link of it, because the Super Skrull is literally just has all the powers of the Fantastic Four. That's what we want. And now you're making it to where like they have Groot's abilities, possible like Hulk's abilities. It's just every hero, villain we see in the MCU, they're amalgamation now. It's like, like again, I get if you want to change things for the better, I
mean, we don't know fully how it's going to play out, but yeah, I mean, because the Super Skrull, I mean, that is a lot of what the Super Skrull is even in comics.
No,
it takes on the superpowers of other beings.
Not good.
It's definitely good. One of my points is that
it's a good show.
Even the show, but because I want to be very objective and fair.
Ugh.
Like this show it's well made.
It is. No, it's a good show.
It's well made. Although there are some of the cheesiest lines that have ever been spoken in the MCU in this show. Like especially from Nick Fury. There's been like at least 2 or 3 times where he said something super intense and serious that was supposed to be cool, and it was so corny and was so stupid I laughed out loud. Like one of them was like, "I'm Nick Fury. Even when I'm out, I'm in." I was like, dude. I laughed out loud. I was like, please, how did that get it past the editor?
You know, that's the thing, at least for me. Like, it's a good show, but it's missing that spark. There's something, it doesn't have that to it. It's like, someone's like, do you like Char? So like, yeah, it's good. But it's like, it's like, yeah. Like, I don't have to watch it every Wednesday. I could watch it on.
Yes.
That's how I know if I love a show or not really like it. I could wait till like Friday, Saturday.
For instance, I didn't watch last Wednesday's episode.
Right.
Or I guess what was it, episode 4? I didn't watch that until almost a week later.
Yeah, like Loki.
Yeah, there's no like
the first urgency. 2 seasons of Mandalorian and stuff and shows like that. I had to watch that night.
Yep.
And it aired. But this, I'm like, yeah, it's good, but I don't have to watch tonight. If I'm tired or busy, I'll do it another night.
Yeah, that is definitely, and I think that is where that what everyone's calling like superhero fatigue. I think that's where that has set in. We're no longer feeling a sense of urgency for a variety of reasons, and there's multiple things that are affecting it. But it's kind of like it goes back to what my point at the end there, you know, which is you're going to have to earn that back.
Yeah.
Both Marvel, DC, and I think the film industry as a whole, you're going to have to earn audiences back. Because you're going to have to win them back. And that's going to have to be done through compelling storytelling.
Right.
You know what I mean? You're going to have to clean up some of these issues in regard to the visual effects, because this is not the CW.
It's not the CW.
You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Like, this is not television where I can turn this on and it's just, you know, part of my package. You know what I mean? I'm not paying anything extra and I can just chill and watch it whenever I want.
Right.
I'm paying a good amount of money to come watch this in the theater. So I'm not coming here to get the same quality that I can get on the CW.
Right.
So there's so many different elements that you can point to. And to be fair, again, Bob Iger and the Disney company, they are talking about that. They're saying, look, we overwhelmed our people. That is one of the things that he addressed, and that's one of the reasons that they're reducing quality. Even though it's, look, again, it's a win-win for them.
Mm-hmm.
They're addressing the fact that yes, we overwhelmed our people and we need to get back to quality over quantity. Those are all very good things, but it also is a budgetary issue. Like they're spending so much money on all these different projects and they just don't have the money to do it anymore. Like they're losing money. I think they've lost money, not because it's not just superhero. They've lost money on their animated films recently. I mean, just their Lucasfilm stuff. Yeah, across all their Lucasfilm, all their major franchises and brands have been on a downturn. So they're scrambling to figure out.
Hey, Gunn, it's your time.
Yeah.
It's your time, Gunn.
Dude, that was a couple of years ago. If you guys go back and watch the podcast a couple of years ago, that was my prediction. Was after the end game, was as we started moving into phase 4 and we started seeing some of the things that Marvel was planning and rolling out, my prediction was if DC, gets their crap together, this will be the time where you will start to see a decline in Marvel and you'll see an opportunity for DC to really grab hold of the superhero genre.
Superman Legacy will really set that tone. I don't even think with Blue Beetle because it's still under the old regime.
Yeah.
Where Creature Commandos will be the first official DC project done under Gunn's hand.
Yep.
And then Superman Legacy will be the first movie. So I think Superman Legacy is going to be very telling of how things are going to go because if people don't even give Superman Legacy a chance, and it's like, oh, they're in trouble.
Yeah, the question just becomes,
But we're not getting, with the way things are going with all these strikes, we're not getting that till 2020, 2030.
That's another thing now. We're talking about all this stuff. It's like, this is another major blow, dude. Like between the SAG, the Actors Guild, and the Writers Guild, and the two strikes happening simultaneously, the first time since in the 1960s, at the worst possible time. And for me, because I've said it to you in private, it really leads you to believe it's like at the dawn of like consumer level AI, because they've been working on AI and doing stuff behind the scenes for a very long time. But we have the emergence of all these AI technology now and quantum computing. And so there's all these new capabilities that are coming out. And it just seems so odd to me that the studios coming off of the pandemic era and all the damage that was done to the industry, the film industry, film and television industry at that time, right? And now all of the box office failures that we've seen roll out over the last couple of years and the further damage that's done to an industry that's already struggling, particularly the theaters, like they're just barely hanging on at this point and, trying to work their way back and dealing with all of these challenges, many of which have come from the really poorly renegotiated deal with the studios. But you've got all these factors. And now on the heels of all that, while the industry is just trying to figure out how to recover from that madness, they allow a dual strike with no end in sight, right?
Things are going great.
Yeah. Real good.
That's why I put it. It's like, we're doing real good. And way to go, Hollywood.
It's like, why would you ever allow that to happen? Because even just a brief strike between those two, because that's a total shutdown.
Because it all burns, Tim.
Yeah,
it's a
Joker move.
It's not about the money.
It's a Joker move. That's my point. This is a freaking Joker move.
Ledger told us years ago. It's not about the money. It's about sending a message.
That's right.
It's about respect.
But it definitely leads me to question, like, what is their real agenda? What are they really after?
Power.
And is this part of the next stage of
terraforming,
real disruption and change? No, I just gotta skip you. You go to your place. But yeah, is this part of the next disruptive portion or stage for the film industry where they want to, because we know they want to start using AI for more stuff, whether that's writing, vocal performances. Because you think about it, if you can use an actor's likeness, which is what they're trying to do.
Llamas.
What?
Llamas.
This is why you don't do drugs before going on.
Llamas. We all know they're secretly using.
Say no, kids.
They're using llamas.
We're going to resurrect that campaign. This is your brain. This is your brain on drugs.
This is a theory. This is a theory about the llamas. Oh. You haven't heard the llama theory?
You know what? I'm just going to let this roll out. Let's hear the theory.
You haven't heard the llama theory?
No, I haven't heard the llama theory.
The llama theory, how they're using llamas in their cuteness to distract everyone so they could do all this stuff in the world. The AI, the chips, they're going to be implemented, weird things.
Llamas are the distraction, or llamas are the ones
llamas
ruling the world?
They're the distraction because they're so cute. And
how do you know they're not the brains?
because like no problema, okay?
You are such an idiot. No problem.
Yeah.
All right, you got me on the no problem. I don't even know what I was talking about at this point. I've completely lost my train of thought. So the point is that the movie industry is not doing the best.
It's not, definitely not.
It's not doing so hot. But superhero films in general, as far as why we're not going to see it. And like you said, who knows when we'll get to see the next one?
Dude.
Sometime in 2028.
Superman is really going to be the man of tomorrow.
For real. For real. I mean, you have actors, they can't even promote their own film. That's still coming out.
That's Blue Beetle's one of them. That's the craziest thing. Barbie, at the time of shooting this, is not out right now.
The Oppenheimer one was one of the craziest ones where they showed up.
They had to move the premiere up an hour.
They did the red carpet.
Yeah.
They moved the premiere up an hour so that the actors who were in the film could do the red carpet and do all of the pictures and with the fans and the whole thing. But then they weren't at the presentation of the actual film.
Nolan was all by himself. Audience.
It was just Nolan because the strike had begun and everybody left.
So,
crazy.
And it's a stacked cast too.
Oh,
like freaking
it's like
crazy.
half the A-listers in Hollywood.
Iron Man's in it.
Yeah, little Robbie. Just across the board, I think this, for me, and I know for you, like the main factor is just quality. Make better stuff. Make better stuff, and they will come. I definitely agree with that. I think that's absolutely a factor. But there's multiple things going on, and different things that are affecting different people. Although the 30-day turnaround, that's
crazy.
That is a major one.
Mm-hmm.
You know what I'm saying? To where it's like, if it's not like something where it's highly anticipated, or their word of mouth gets out that something you've got to see this on the big screen.
Mm-hmm.
People are just waiting. Not everyone, but a lot of people.
It's true. I mean, I'm doing that for several films, like I said several times already. So,
so what you're saying is
movies.
You're part of the problem.
In a small way, probably. Make better films, and this wouldn't be an issue.
Yeah. I'm very curious to see, because I mean, I think I've vocalized it on the show before. I think I've talked about it before, but I know I've definitely talked to you about it a lot behind the scenes. Is I am so worried about the theater.
Oh, they're probably going to be
the theater industry. I don't see at this.
You're
point.
Going to get one a city, if that.
Yeah, I just don't see a path, and this has been true since 2020. I just don't see a path where theaters survive the decade because of the direction of everything. And I think more importantly, the direction that the studios and people that are heading up the industry seemingly want to take everything.
Yeah.
Every move they make seems to support that. The fact that they want things to where they can it goes to streaming. People watch it at home. It's more cost effective for them.
My phone fell.
Phone breaking. There's just, and that really bums me the freak out. Because going to movies, going to the theaters, particularly like summer movies, the big blockbusters, right? And that they've spread that out throughout the year now more so than when I was a kid. But, being able to go and see that big, that big summer blockbuster or whatever with the visual effects and just the wow, shiny objects on the big screen with your family or your friends or whatever, and experience that in a communal way, with a bucket of popcorn. I mean, that was what made me want to make movies when I was a kid, right? It was what drew me that and made me a film lover to begin with. And to see that die and to where everything is relegated to your small screen at home and you never get to have that communal experience. Just think about what we experienced with Infinity War.
Oh, that's such a big epic event.
One of the more recent examples.
I love going to the theaters for certain films, but I'm like in the middle ground. Like I love the theater, I love the experience for certain films, but then there's other films where it's like, I'd rather watch that at home.
Oh yeah, I mean that's always been true though.
Yeah,
right. Even when I was a kid, there was like stuff would come out to Blockbuster or whatever. You didn't see every film in the theaters, but that option was always there for the bigger ones.
Dude,
and for the
welcome
ones
to
that
AOL Movie Phone,
yeah,
or just the newspaper. I remember my dad would go look at the paper, and you'd have to go find the Regal, and you're like Coral Springs, Florida, and where it is, and all that stuff, and be like, "What's the time?" It's crazy to see the evolution.
Yeah, it's changed so much, but to see theaters die,
to be a dinosaur,
and just to where it's like very difficult.
They'll never go away permanently.
But to see it become more of a novelty where you just don't have, because there's business realities to any business, and if theaters just can't keep their head above water,
for sure,
they're going to close. It doesn't matter whether we want it or not. If they can't make enough money to keep the doors open, they're going to close down. And to see that happen, and to see theaters largely go away, and maybe you only just have, you got to drive into a big city to find one, and it's like a more of a novelty, something you do maybe once or twice a year. That would just bum me the freak out.
I think what we're saying is, Tim, make better films and TV shows.
Sure. That's also true. That's also true. But I am very curious to see, because this has actually become a pretty broad debate.
No, for
about
sure.
What's causing this? Is it actually happening? To what level?
In reality, like you were kind of breaking down earlier, it is a lot of different things, maybe more so certain things than others. But it's just the last several years have been the perfect storm for just so many
Without
things.
a doubt.
And it's just, in this strike, is another thing that's going to be a massive detriment to films and TV. They're saying just for as long as writers have been on strike and, SAG has been on strike right now, we're probably not going to see a new show or movie till 2025. So 2024 is basically already a wash. Yeah. And we're still going.
Yeah.
So it's like, I want Stranger Things, man.
Yeah, it is going to be very interesting to see now. I know we've had to say this several times over the last few years, but we're kind of right back to, this is almost the same effect as the lockdowns.
No, 100% it is.
We're kind of right back to we don't even know when, we don't know when they're coming back. We don't know when productions are going to start up. We don't know when movies and television shows are going to come out now.
Horrible.
It's like this reset of content now is going to be wildly up in the air. And another thing that we didn't really mention, which is also another factor to kind of this whole fiasco, is that you have, unlike in the past where Hollywood kind of just American cinema just kind of dominated the landscape, you have huge international blockbuster films now coming out of India, China, right? That are taking up a good chunk of their box offices, which is also affecting the international.
Kind of like manga, what they're doing here in America.
That's actually one of the points I wanted to make about the superhero films and why it was it's a.
But is it because manga's telling good stories and that's their number one focus?
That is the thing that was the other thing I wanted to bring up that supports the quality issue. Is because American comics have been in decline.
Because Japan doesn't care. Japan's like, is it a good story? Will people read it? Yeah, print it. America's like, maybe don't talk about that.
But it's just a lot of the same things that are plaguing the film, television side for superhero content are plaguing American comics.
Yeah, no, it all bleeds because it's all entertainment.
Yeah.
So it all bleeds into each other in one way or another.
So it's like, again, on all facets, whether you're talking about American comics.
I'm going to buy a shirt. This just says, make better stories. That's all I was going to say.
Yeah. Whether you're talking about American comics or American film and television, it's just, the answer is the same. You guys are going to have to, just get off your behind, pull your head out of the same area, and earn the audiences back.
I gotta say,
the portions of the audiences that you lost, you gotta earn them back.
Manga and anime, I love it, but admittedly, I think even massive anime and manga fans would say some of the stuff is like, what? That is just weird and crazy. Mm-hmm. But even if it's something that's well, that's so weird and crazy that I personally don't enjoy it, I respect it because it's yeah, just because I don't like it, there's probably a good section of people who do they just do it. They're not I just like the whole we don't care. It's probably going to sell, so we're going to do it.
And you know what I hate? You know what I hate in regard to this part of the discussion is, and we're going to get a bunch of these comments, I'm sure, in this episode. It's never the majority, but they're always there. Is the pushback of it's not that, it's that there are toxic fandoms. The fandoms have become toxic. Yes, I will agree with you that there is a portion of each fandom.
You're going to have that in any fandom.
But you're going to have that, exactly. You're going to have it no matter what. That is not the majority of the problem. A lot of the people that are screeching toxic fandom is the problem are the people that they like the direction things are going, particularly on the ideological side. Seemingly, that's a lot of where that's coming from. Everyone else is you just have a difference of opinion.
Well, it's
just because someone doesn't agree with you and you can't force an audience to like something and watch something and get mad at them when they don't because they don't like it because you do. That's dumb. That's a dumb argument.
Well, the negative is always louder than the positive because you could have 1,000 people could tell me, Arris, you're such a nice person. You're just a cool dude. 2 people tell me you're a douchebag. I'm like, that's all. I'm not thinking about the 1,000 people who are like, you're awesome. I'm thinking of the 2 people who say I'm a douchebag. So it's like, it just always kind of works out that way.
Yeah, but it's a dumb argument to make.
It is.
It's a dumb argument to make. That is not the majority of the problem. It's just that there is a huge chunk of people that are just saying, I don't like the direction that this is going.
Or am I a narcissist, Tim? And I'm like, no, everyone has to love me. People can't not like me.
That's true too. We can do 2 things at once. But yeah, it's like, okay, if you have something that comes up and I like it and you don't, and then I go, well, yeah, that's just I don't like the direction that you're going. We're like, well, it's like the Peacemaker.
Awful. It's like the Peacemaker.
You know what the problem is? You're becoming toxic because you're supposed to like this. It's like this is for a new generation. It's not for you. Okay, well then I'm not going to watch it. How dare you, sir?
It's like Peacemaker. You admittedly, you've said on the podcast several times, you didn't really enjoy Peacemaker. That's not your kind of comedy, your kind of show, right? I loved it, and so did clearly a lot of other people. It's widely considered generally to be like one of the best things DC has done. But it's like, you're not over here being like, you're just like, I just don't like it. That's me. I know. I realize a lot of people do. Yeah, and that's it.
If you like it and that's your thing and it's successful, good. DC's going to make more for you. Okay. You know what I'm saying? I'm not going around going, oh, you guys are the toxic entities that are making DC bad.
This goes into a larger discussion where people aren't allowed to have a different opinion. You can't be civil with someone who has a different opinion than you nowadays. Like before, it's like, yeah, you like this, I like that, but we still, can be friends. Now that's not a thing. It's like, you like the Mets? You suck. It's all about the Marlins. Yeah. It's that kind of thing right now.
Because it gets clicks.
Yeah.
The outrage gets clicks, and it's like, okay, I get it, but it's just not the actual answer to the problems.
You know how
it's certainly not the biggest part of the issue.
You know how I wish we could end this podcast? This is my brain just being my brain again.
I can't wait to hear this.
I was just like, I wanted to end with yet again saying make better stories, and then saying I'm out, doing a mic drop,
and then
just
flip the table.
Yeah. Oh, that would have been good.
Yeah.
My brain didn't go there.
Yeah, that's good because I'm like all my stuff. Microphones. I'm not buying new mics. I'll come right out of here. But yeah, so in conclusion, I think both of us agree that one of the biggest issues is the quality. But there's a lot of different things going on, and in the end, they've got to earn it back.
They do got to earn it back. And James Gunn give us the Teen Titans.
Blue Beetle. Success or failure? Go.
I think failure. I think it's going to be good, but I think it's going to have I think people are just waiting for the reboot now at this point. Like, I don't think it's going to be Flash, but I don't think this is going to be like, oh my God, it's making all this money. I think it's going to be a good movie that does just okay at the box office.
I just wonder if it's going to be detached enough from the whole Zack Snyder era. I wonder if it's going to be detached enough to where it might get the Rise of the Beasts treatment, where if it is good and just fun and it feels separate enough that it gets its own word-of-mouth support and it actually generates something for them.
I hope so. It looks fun.
Because it's a new character. He's unlike Aquaman, The Flash, and Shazam. They've never been anywhere else.
I hope, but because we talked about it a little bit earlier, it's not even superhero movies. It's just kind of movies in general. And the fact that it's kind of has that DC stigma attached to it on top of it. They're like, it's new, but like, I'll say this. I think word of mouth is going to, kill this movie or make it succeed. I think that's what's going to happen. Because you're going to have the people like me who are going to see it, obviously. But depending on what we think of it is going to get people in the theaters or not.
Yeah.
Because
do we know what the budget is?
No.
Or was?
Mm-mm.
I don't know.
It's got to be probably 150 to 200 mil. That's like the standard for these kind of movies.
Yeah, I wonder if it's like in the Shazam boat where they didn't put that much into it because there's really no big name stars in it.
Cobra Kai, my dude.
I mean, don't get me wrong. Like George Lopez is a well-known figure. Susan Sarandon is a well-known figure, but neither of them are like huge figures. Is what I'm saying.
I don't know. We'll see. We'll be right here talking about it. That's for dang sure.
We'll be back to talk
because we're weekly now. We're weekly now. So every Monday you get to hear this. Unless there's unforeseen circumstances. But other than that, it'll be fine.
It'll be fine. It'll be fine.
Be fine.
But let us know what you guys think about what's going on in the industry, and if you know what factors you think are most at play. Is it quality? Is it just kind of the overall environment for movies and television in general? Let us know what you guys think, and if you have not already, go check out our merch store, variantcomics.com, the Variant Labs merch. That's all up and live now as well. We got a bunch of stuff more, just like here on the podcast, we got a bunch more stuff coming for that.
Wear that V.
Yeah.
Wear that V.
Exactly right. And then we'll be back next Monday.
Yeah, when we'll talk.
This was fun. I'm glad to get back in the.
It was fun.
Back
you get to look forward to it every week now.
Yeah. We can talk about it.
Flying V formation. That should be a tagline. Get it?
Yeah,
the Ducks.
I get it.
The Mighty Ducks.
Yeah, I get it.
1, 2, and 3.
I was there.
D2, D3. Good movie. Anyway, we'll see you next time when we talk about all things comics.